Hello everyone, welcome to our webinar. My name is Andrew Townsend, I'm with eLearning Brothers. Today we're going to be talking about the time-saving effect of storyboarding. Very popular topic. We hope you guys enjoy what we've got to share with you today. If you have questions during the webinar, we'll be ready to answer your questions in that questions panel, so please do use that throughout the session. We'll try to get to as many of your questions as we possibly can. All right, we have Tim Reed, Operations Training Manager with Secureworks with us today. Thanks, Tim, for your time. We're excited to hear what you have to share. And without further ado, I'll go ahead and turn the time over to you.
Thank you, Andrew. And I'm gonna let y'all know right now. I'm gonna keep the camera on for just a few minutes while I introduce myself. The camera's actually at the bottom of the computer. Really bad design, so y'all are looking at my nose the whole time. So, and I think you want to focus on the storyboarding. So, I am operations training manager, so I do a little bit of everything at Secureworks, from instructional design to the project management of instructional design projects, right? So storyboarding is absolutely a major part of my workflow, and really always has been for the 10 plus 12 years that I've been an instructional designer and in the training space. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and jump on into it. So the time-saving effect of storyboarding. Thank you guys for joining, by the way, and thanks to eLearning Brothers for hosting me. So there are several ways that we can storyboard in specifically in PowerPoint. We can do the on-the-fly approach with some really awesome tools that PowerPoint 365 has available for you. Also in a pre-built template, and that would be, takes a little bit of prep time ahead of time, and then you can kind of run with it. We'll go over both of these methods, and if you're doing a pre-built template approach, you're going to be also using that on-the-fly approach. So I stuck that in combination as well. So that's kind of your third way, is to kind of do a combination of each of these. So let's talk about what storyboarding actually is. So what is storyboarding? And for many people, it's a means to an end. It's a way to get from point A to point Z. More importantly, what it is it's a layout of our story. It's it's scene by scene or topic by topic. It's a layout of our story that we're telling. And oftentimes what a storyboard will contain will be, production notes or development notes that will give ideas on, on the production angle, cameras, or in the instructional design space, it would be, what kinds of interactions are on the screen, what kind of visuals are you using, and that sort of thing. So who storyboards? And that's obviously most of us probably storyboard, right? But who else? So videographers will storyboard. So that's anybody from your movie makers, which we see that down on the bottom right there. So filmographers or videographers, filmmakers. So that's everything from television advertisements, right, to major motion pictures. And then also your game developers will often storyboard so that they can kind of see their story, and sort of as they start that development process of the game development. And then of course instructional designers, as I mentioned, we're all relatively familiar with the storyboarding process. So what is rapid storyboarding, and how does it differ from just storyboarding that we've already just kind of gone through? The biggest thing here, the biggest differentiator, is we're skipping perfection, right? We're literally going through and kind of just grabbing what we need, putting it on the screen, giving a general size and placement to it, not really focused on perfection or focused on that fine-tuned design, right? We're really just focused on getting the stuff on the page. And we're also skipping those development notes. So we're not painstakingly identifying the types of interactions that we'll use, putting feedback or content in or anything like that. We're skipping over that altogether. And the biggest factor there is obviously going to be time savings. And more importantly, it's time savings early in the development process so that we can actually get much sooner to the next iteration of our storyboard, or the next or even the next phase, which for many of us is going to be that development phase, right, where we actually start to get into the tool and start to actually develop the story, or and develop the content. So why should you rapidly storyboard? That's kind of a no-brainer, I think, at this point, right? Because you're saving that time, and that's but this is too important not to kind of cover again, right? The thing that you get from rapid storyboarding is very early on you get your content, your story in front of stakeholders, in front of subject matter experts, and in front of even peers, right? To get that early review, that early feedback, so that you know what are the gaps, what are the areas that I didn't cover, so sometimes a question from a SME or whatever early on in the process is going to change the direction that you're going with your storyboard. So it's better to get that information early on. So that's the biggest thing there, is the time savings and getting that early reaction, so that you really know, am I going in the right direction? And now what the part that you're all really wondering is, how do you do it, right? How do you storyboard rapidly? There are a number of tools out there that can be used for rapid storyboarding. Obviously today we're going to focus on PowerPoint 365, but I'll just hit on a couple of these here. So storyboarding in storyboarding tools, right? So Captivate Draft is an iPad application that specifically is made by Adobe for Adobe Captivate. As you can imagine, there's a pretty nice transition from the Draft to Captivate. Storyboard, that is an actual storyboarding application online website, and then another Plot is another application. Those are specifically for storyboarding. Those last two, primarily, I think they're made for filmmakers and that sort of video production space. Mind mapping tools, Xmind, MindMaster, some of those have presentation modes on them so that you can kind of lay out your storyboard that way. Note-taking apps like OneNote. Presentation tools, again, we're going to cover PowerPoint, but Keynote is the Mac version of of that PowerPoint or presentation tool. You can also do it in the tools themselves, so in the e-learning authoring tools like Captivate and Storyline. And in something that I've actually experimented with is actually using UX or wireframing tools like Adobe XD. You can even use some prototyping and design tools. I've kind of lumped them all into one category, but definitely some great things. But I think that by the end of today, you're gonna be a believer in the power of just going straight to PowerPoint 365 and getting into the storyboarding process. And with that said, what I'd like to go ahead and do is kind of take you back through the presentation and actually recreate the presentation that we just went through as if we're doing an e-learning module, something to that effect. So first things first, I'm going to get my slide in here. And the first things I had on my screen were some icons, right? So let's go up to the icons. The icons are found in the Insert tab. So when you hit Insert, you're gonna reveal the Insert ribbon here. So there's a ton of useful things here, but we only have so much time, right? So I'm going to focus on some of the key things. But go ahead and open up this icon. These are, like I said, these are built right in here for you. So as soon as you open that, you can see they are separated and categorized by category on the left-hand side. I will say this is probably it would be awesome to be able to search, but unfortunately the only functionality you have is to be able to click through. If you notice though, as I'm clicking each one of these, the category that I'm clicking on, it shows up here at the top. I find that to be the easier way to kind of roll through these and see what I'm looking for. If I can't really find something that I'm looking for, I'll just kind of click through these and just pay attention to that top line there. All right, so once the other thing to point out is that you can actually select multiple. You can select multiple icons. So here, for example, the clock is one thing I need. let's say I grab this light bulb as well. So you can actually grab as many as you need, click insert, and that's going to pop it there on the screen for you. And so I'm just going to start filling this out here, just like we did, just like I did as I actually went through the development process. So you notice my icons are right there. Let's say I don't want that that light bulb there. I really just need the clock. One thing I want to point you to now is over on the right-hand side, you see that there's a panel that's opened up. And what that is it's the design features. It's the, I'm actually going to click on the, so point your attention here, look at and notice that they give you kind of these different layouts that you can use. So that's PowerPoint saying, hey, don't worry about laying stuff out. Let me do it for you. So the design, I'm going to go up here in the top to hit on the design ribbon. And you notice over on the right-hand side, that's where, so if you were to click this, it would toggle it off, right? So if you ever want that and it's not there, click on the design to get the design ribbon, and then all the way over to the right to design ideas. And like I said, that's going to give you some suggestions. So you can very quickly, you see, lay out the screen. One thing to note.
Quick question about that design ideas section. Is that available only in PowerPoint 365?
I believe it is PowerPoint 365 only. I actually found a really great, I should have shared that with you all. I found a really great video last night that covers like the 5 or 6 features that are not in PowerPoint 2016. Unfortunately, they are only in Office 365 version, which I believe design idea is one of those things.
Okay, that's fine. That we just wanted to clarify. Thanks.
Yep, good, great question. Great question. So, I encourage you, if you see features in here and you don't have PowerPoint 365 and maybe you have 2016 instead, we're still going to be covering some concepts, right, that can be used not just in PowerPoint but in other tools, right? So I definitely encourage you to kind of go and explore, even if you don't have Office 365. So with that said, let's move to one other really cool feature that I like here, and it's the change icon feature. So I've clicked on the icon here, and up in the right hand side, I get a replace your icon button. This is part of the designer features, I believe. So you click on that, and it gives you suggestions. A lot of times, it gives you a really relevant suggestion. Sometimes not so much. Nevertheless, the utility is there though, because you can still very quickly, without having to go all the way up to the top of the screen, find the ribbon that you want, and then go to the icons. Instead, you just go right over here to say see all icons, because there's nothing here it's suggesting that I want. So maybe there's something else. So I just click on that. And as soon as I see it, let's say I want that. Let's say I want the watch instead. As soon as I select it, it's going to actually replace the watch, or excuse me, replace the icon with whatever I've selected. All right. So another really cool feature is it's called the reuse slides. I can see this being a feature outside of storyboarding that I'm going to use quite often, but definitely for storyboarding. And it's especially useful when you know you have some content that's going to be put in here in your storyboard. And rather than rebuild or going and finding it and copying and pasting, PowerPoint gives you this awesome utility where, again, on the Insert tab or the Insert ribbon rather, over here on the left-hand side under the Slides section is Reuse Slides. So what that's doing is it's actually it's going through and searching your OneDrive, it's searching your documents, your desktop, it's searching your SharePoint. So anything that's connected to your Office 365 account and anything that's local, it'll crawl through those and try to find, provides you access to relevant content. So what you do is click on it. So I've chosen this storyboarding content PowerPoint here, and notice it is only PowerPoint that it's pulling up, and I believe that's for a compatibility thing. So if you were to try to pull up Word content, that wouldn't be, it probably would not translate as well. So you notice though, if I click on this slide that I want, I can either go down here or just click on the slide itself, and it's going to pop that right in there. So that whole slide is in a matter of a couple clicks, I can have that content right there available to me. Something else I want to point out is you notice down here in the bottom right hand side, I have, this is really where I start to say, okay, what do I need to kind of prep my storyboard? And there's really not a whole lot that you're going to do. But the big thing is providing a page number here for your viewers, so that when they have questions and things, they can say, okay, on slide 20 you were talking about X, Y, and Z, and maybe they have a question about it, or maybe there was something important that was missing from it. But so that'll give them an easy way to find that. So the way that you do that, your templates are going to have, or excuse me, your out of the box PowerPoint is going to have footer information, including the date and all that, but you have to actually turn it on, right? So with this, you just go to Insert, and then Page Number. It's really small and unfortunately kind of hard to see. If you're on a bigger monitor, it's going to be, that's actually a hashtag or a number sign. So you click on that, and that puts the page number wherever it is in your template, or excuse me, in your master slides. And then another thing to point out is layouts. Again, on the home ribbon, layouts, you've got a number of layouts that they give you out of box. You can go into the master slides and change this around, and we'll see that here very shortly of what that actually looks like, what that process looks like of changing things around. But for now, just know that you'll want to give folks a page number so that they can easily identify where they're at in your storyboard. All right, and then so now the next slide I have is that first question there, right? It's the what is storyboarding. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to go up and give myself a slide here, and then use my icons to start building that slide. So I know that in the people section is where I'm actually going to find the communication sections first, right? Now that's where I'm going to find my thought bubble, and then I'm not going to go ahead and hit insert yet. I'm going to wait, go down to people, which is where I'm going to find the person. Of course, they give you a number of ones to choose from. And once it inserts, again, I'm not going to take a ton of time, right? But I'm just going to try to size it as best I can, lay it out as best I can. Gonna change my font just real quick, and then lay out my question here. All right, so you see very quickly get to kind of where we want with that slide. And then same thing with the next slide. I'm going to insert another slide here, and actually going to do this so that I can point out the Control D. So I believe it's Command D on a Mac, but on PC you're going to do Control D, and that's going to duplicate. And that goes for whether you're on a slide or whether you're on an object that's on a slide. So if I click Control D here, that's actually going to duplicate the object for me. So instead of actually going up and clicking on the icons, instead I just went ahead and duplicated that slide, because now I'm going to grab the target that we had, where we started talking about storyboarding being a means to an end. All right, that's going to be in my analytics, and there's that guy right there. And I'll just go ahead and you notice that when it comes in, it's pretty much the relative size that you already have that object. So since I've done that, there's not really a whole lot I'm going to need to do in order to change it around. just very quickly. And then I'm going to grab my shapes. Now, this is the first time I've used shapes here, but I do want to point out shapes are immensely powerful. You'll see here very shortly some additional ways that we can use shapes. But right now, I'm just going to grab the ellipse, which if I hold down the shift, click and drag, and that's going to give me a perfect circle. So again, that's holding down shift, click and drag, and that will give you the perfect circle. I'm just going to quickly change the content there, change the size of my font. And then before I had a line, right? So I'm just going to grab the line object and start drawing from point A to point Z. Something else I had was the letter Z. All right, and now moving on, I want to go ahead and grab those next slides that I had. The next slides were the storyboard slides. And let's say I remember that I had created some slides for this very purpose, and instead of trying to recreate them in my storyboard, I'm actually going to go and click on the reuse slides. I'm going to find that presentation where I had that information, and then look at there. Those are both right there, so I can just keep clicking however many times I need. Now, one thing I want to point out here is the benefit of seeing your story, your kind of the full view of your story. That is one of the reasons why people do storyboards. Obviously, we need to be able to see it full view. Our subject matter experts and and stakeholders, they may need us to just walk them through it, right? But for us to be able to get that full view, rather than, you could of course, print out each slide and kind of lay them out, which there might be some, some effectiveness to that, right? But to be able to do it right here within PowerPoint, you go to your View tab. So your View, click on View to reveal the review ribbon. And then in the top, we've got a couple things that I want to point out. First of all, to be able to see that view that I was talking about, click on Slide Sorter. That's going to give you your full presentation here laid out in, again, if you're on a bigger screen, you're going to be able to see, much more. I believe you can actually zoom out. Yeah, so you can control zoom and be able to kind of get a bigger picture of everything that's there. Now, to get out of this view, I can either click on normal, or if I've already clicked away from this view tab, I can just click on the section in the presentation where I want to be. And for me, that's the very end here. And then something else to point out here on the View tab is the Notes section. So I talked about skipping over those development notes, right? Sometimes though, something comes to mind, and rather than getting out of the mode of PowerPoint and getting out of the mode of storyboarding and going to jot something down, if it pertains to that section in your course or in your in your e-learning, then put it right there. So the way that you can do that is actually, there's two ways to do it. There's one is the notes, which is kind of what I would recommend because you can kind of get it out of the way. And that's the notes button here that's towards the middle of your view ribbon. So click on that, and that's going to reveal the notes down at the bottom of your screen. And so there you can just, whatever those thoughts that come to mind are, get them down and get them out of your head, and to just keep on with the process so that you don't wind up distracting yourself from the main thing, which is rapidly putting that storyboard together. So those are the key things that I kind of wanted to show right there on that ribbon. But then again, we talked about Control D. So the next thing that I need is my Who Storyboards slide. So rather than recreating this with shapes, I'm just going to come to the slide where I've got a similar slide. So I'm going to click on it and then do Control D. and then click and drag that, that slide down to where I need it. And then just quickly change the content to be what I need. All right, and then the next thing we need is going to be, we're going to need to add another slide in here again, and go to our insert icons so that we can grab some of these icons to make up the Who storyboards screen. So I know that education is one where I've got an icon that could represent instructional designers. I've got let's start clicking through and finding the ones I need here. So there's my two for video. And then I believe there's a puzzles and games. Yep, there we are, puzzles and games. And now we've inserted all of those all at once. And again, I'm going to use that design ideas feature, right? Because you know, why spend the time moving things around and trying to get it perfect? Instead, PowerPoint's telling me, hey, I can do that for you. So I'm going to go over here and to the right. Let's say that this is, let's say I'm doing, you know, this is an e-learning, right? So I want to be able to add some sort of functionality. So let's say click each icon to learn how each professional uses storyboarding. So right there, in just a matter of a couple clicks, we've been able to very quickly and easily kind of depict an interaction without actually having to do an interaction. You know, because you know, why spend that time, you know, building a prototype if you're not heading in the right direction? What if those aren't the ones that your subject matter experts deem should be covered, right? So what if it's something else? So why spend the time actually building it if you know, if you're going to head in a different direction, or if there's a chance that you could head in a different direction? So using those design ideas, I was able to quickly do that. The other thing is just going to go ahead and bring in the rest of my presentation for time purposes. And so you notice I'm just going to click through here and just grab each one of these slides. Okay, so now that I've got those, in, I do want to show another important feature, and that is actually using sections to organize your content, organize your storyboard for your own purposes, but also to be able to utilize one of the other tools that I find, you know, extremely useful, which is the Zoom tool. It's a way for you to essentially kind of create a menu screen, if you will, for each of your sections, so that you can go through those one by one, and while you show your subject matter experts and your peers and your stakeholders. So in order to do that, we're going to go up to, I'm going to put my cursor at the first section that I need, and on the Home tab, which is most often where you're going to be because that's kind of the default tab. On that tab, you're going to do Add Section. On the middle of the screen, we're going to just name it Introduction. And then what I want to point out is on the left-hand side, it actually inserted that section for me. Below that is going to be, so everything included in that section, I'll just collapse it real quick. Everything that's below that section is going to be included until you add another section. So I come to this next one and I want to add a section here. So again, I go up to the Home tab, Section, and then Add Section. What is storyboarding is this section here. Something else to point out on the sections is if you hover over and you right click, you're going to get a number of options. So you can rename the section. It also gives you the option to remove sections and slides. So you have to be careful with what you're selecting, because you could blow away all your content if you're not careful. And then the remove all sections, what that does is actually it just removes the sections. It does not affect your content at all. And then of course moving up and down, but I find it much faster to just click on the section that I want and drag it to where I want it to be. So just to give you that example, I'm going to right click over the section on the bottom here. What is storyboarding? And then you see I can actually drag it to where I need it to go. All right, and so instead of going through each and every one of those, adding each and every one of those sections, I do want to show quickly how to do that. So I had already put in sections for, you notice on the slide, I'm scrolling through my thumbnails of each slide. I've already put those sections in there so that I could show this, the way that this tool or this feature works. So if you go to your insert ribbon again, you're going to see zoom. Because I only have certain things here, I'm going to have a summary zoom, and that's what I want. That's the one that's going to give me each of my sections. You can do a section zoom or a slide zoom, and that would be if you're on a slide, you can add a section zoom, which would be, it would zoom to whichever section you want it to zoom to. Same thing, and that literally means it's going to that section. So when you get to that point in the presentation, you'll see the image of that slide and you click on it, it'll take you to that section. Same thing with the slide zoom, but let's see it in action with the summary zoom. So I want to put my summary zoom right there between these two slides, and it's very quick and easy. So you just actually select the sections that you want. You notice I'm kind of touching on the main sections there. And actually, these are duplicates, right? So I'm going to just deselect these. Click on
So the
insert.
question came up about the section zooming. Would you use this when trying to represent branching, since it involves jumping to slides?
Awesome question. Awesome question. So glad somebody asked that. Absolutely, you could use this for a branching scenario. Obviously, you have to be careful because it's not going to fully represent your branching, but you could, if you're creative and I say be careful because I'm sure you could, depending on how complex your scenario is that you're branching, I call it fake the funk, right? And that's what you're doing here. You're creating this very quick and easy to add just these images here, and then they zoom you right to the section. So you could definitely represent a branching scenario that way, but I say be careful because that's where you can really start to get into spending a lot of time in your storyboard, and the main thing, right, is getting it on the screen and getting it out there and getting it in front of your subject matter experts quickly, and not spending a ton of time on something that could change. So that's why I say be careful there, but definitely I say yes to the question, but also, for a click to reveal, for example, might be a use of this, a good use of this particular feature within. So if you imagine let's actually go here. This I think could be represented very easily with a click to reveal kind of thing, where we would do a summary or a section zoom, or even a slide zoom, and we would put the images here in place of these images, and that's how we would get to the slide that has the content on it about how filmographers use, for example, how filmographers use storyboarding, how gamers use it, and so on. Great question. All right, so So the section zoom, let me head back up here, and then let's see what it actually looks like. So I'm going to go into slideshow mode, and it literally is, it just puts these, keeps these images here and they become buttons, right? So I can actually click through to each of these sections. Notice when I get to the end of the section, it's bringing me back here. So thinking about that scenario, that branching scenario or that click to reveal, this is how it functions. I believe there's a lot of people in the audience that could take this and make some pretty cool, quick on the fly interactions. So again, who storyboards? So we had that one slide in this section. Now that we're done with it, it brings us back to each. So you imagine this is, going through and showing your subject matter experts. It's also a way to do that as well. So to be able to take them, and that way they can kind of get a perspective, a sort of a high level view, if you will, of really what the story you're telling is. And one more, speaking of interactions, I do want to highlight, I mentioned earlier how the, how storyboards, or how features, um, like shapes and icons and stuff are immensely powerful, even when it comes to, creating interaction. So we did, or creating the illusion of interaction, or creating the depiction of interaction, if you will. And I'm looking for, there it is. All right, so so this slide, for example, we've created the depiction of interaction. So we just put the instructions on the screen to let the learners know what they're supposed to do, and let your subject matter experts know that, hey, this is a section where I'm going to want learners to be able to explore each of these different areas. So we can do something similar with shapes. If you remember this wall of words from earlier, this was quite purposeful. I think you probably noticed throughout the presentation, there's not a whole lot of text involved. It's really trying to get to the point. But so take a look at this. This is a ton of information, right? So we can actually we could actually depict an interaction. So let's say in our e-learning course, we want the learners to be able to go through an interaction here with the content. So let's say that interaction is, there's a ton of different tools that someone could use. So we want them to be able to kind of identify what category those tools go into. So I could very quickly do this. So I'm just going to grab some shapes real quick. And then again, I'm going to use my Control D. Now that I've got this one shape on the screen, I'm going to be able to use that to do a ton of things. So first, I'm going to get my, and I'm probably not going to go through each and every one of these, but this gives you the idea. So I Control D, and then I drag. So Control D and drag, and that will get me a duplicate of the copy, and it will place it where I want to. As opposed to if I'm just clicking on it and doing Control D, it's going to pop it out there, but it's still going to be kind of near where the original object was. So again, to get that to move where you want it to, do a Control Shift and then click and drag, and it's going to move it to where you want. Control Shift and drag is going to keep it in a horizontal or a vertical. So you notice it's keeping me. Notice the red lines, they're kind of faint, but take a look there and see if you can see them. It keeps it in line. So kind of keeps you, it really kind of helps you to make it more of of an even layout as you're going through. So this is where my feedback is going to pop up for this interaction that I'm building. And remember, we're skipping perfection, so ignore the imperfection here. But it's just very quickly going to do buttons here. So this is my button for storyboarding. So here's my button for user experience tool. And then eLearning, authoring. All right, so hopefully you get the point there with being able to quickly create some interaction. So I'm going to actually change this a little bit, and these are actually going to be my instructions. Click the button below to categorize the tool. And then that lets the viewer know that, okay, this is an interaction here where we're asking them to categorize the tools, whatever the incoming tool is. Maybe we'll have an example of, of what the tool is. So let's say Captivate, right? And then that lets the viewer know that, hey, this is an interaction here. All right, so that actually covers kind of the on-the-fly approach. I do want to step into the next one, which is going to be the pre-built. And again, the pre-built is going to take a little bit of your a little bit of preparation on the front end, unless you can find a template that's kind of like this around. So let me just navigate here to. This will look familiar to you because this is actually where I was pulling those other pieces of content from. So here on this slide, you notice around the edges, we've got some stuff, and I've got whoever's using the template, I've got some instructions for them here to say, hey, if you can't see anything around the edges, zoom out a little bit and you'll be able to see. So let's take a look at what that actually looks like. I'm going to zoom out here. So what I've done is I've placed a few objects on the screen, kind of the most likely to be used objects, which could make your development process even quicker than so using the on the fly along with some of this pre-built stuff, you can imagine how quickly you can kind of run through and start building scenarios, building screens, being able to sort of convey what the story is you're telling. So in the view, let's take a look at one thing I want to point out real quick is grab a new slide, and then in the layouts, remember I talked about layouts earlier. So in the home ribbon, there's a layouts button, and you notice there's default layouts, but you can actually adjust these, and that's the way you do that is you go to view and then slide master. And that's going to take you here to the slide master where you'll start to actually customize what these look like, and you can actually name them. As you notice, as I hover over this is named, the section header is named woman layout, section header woman layout. And then this one's named office layout. Not to be confused with Microsoft Office, but actually it's literally an office. So let's take a look at that here. So really, it's just an image on the screen here that I put. And you notice I've got my my number footer, the regular footer, and the date. The only thing I've activated in my presentation that you all saw was actually the number. By doing that same approach where I did earlier, clicking on, and I'll just show you real quick how you insert a number. Let me close out of the slide master, go to insert, and then click on number. And then you literally just check the things that you want to show. So that footer that we saw, or sorry, that footer that was a slide number off to the right, let's say we want to apply that, and then it puts your number there. So let's go ahead and select for this blank slide here, let's select that office. So now with that office, And I've already messed myself up here. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to duplicate this slide, right? Because we want all this content that's here. So Control D, and again, that's going to give us a duplicate. We can go ahead and get rid of these two things that are on the screen, and now we can select Layout. So again, Home tab or Home ribbon, Layout, and then select the office, because we're going to do a little scenario in the office. So we'll Control, click, and drag will get us a duplicate, or again, we can Control D to get a duplicate. A number of ways to get the items that we need. All right, and then now we can just grab whichever talk bubbles we need. Put whatever content. And then just in a matter of a few seconds, we've gotten some things. Let's say there's some interaction that we want to include. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select to grab all of these objects. There's actually two objects. There's a shape and an icon. I'm going to click to drag those. And let's say there's some kind of demonstration that's included here, and so I want to give them a button or two for some type of interaction. Then, if we need it to stand out a little bit, we can of course always change the look of it. All right, and there, just a matter of a few seconds, and we've got a scenario. We've even got, some buttons here on the screen to be able to show the viewer whether it's your, again, your subject matter expert, your stakeholders, or even your peers, because that peer feedback is super, super important. Because there's things that, when we're knee deep in something, there's a lot of times things we don't see. So it's always good to have that additional professional instructional designer position, or perception of it, and that way they can kind of help to reveal some things. So one more and final thing, and on that note, that I wanted to cover with you all, which is that feedback component. It's so important to get that feedback, and it's really important to make it easy. So, if it's you going through the presentation and showing someone, that's one thing. But if you're in one of those situations where somebody has to review this without your talk track, you want to provide them some sort of, notes, which you could do that in the notes section, just very, very brief. Again, don't get detailed with those. Just be very, very brief with it. And you want to, more importantly, you want to give them a way to very easily provide you feedback. And so the way that you can do that is actually have them do it directly in the presentation. So first of all, in the review tab, we've got the new comment. So I'm going to click on new comment, and then that puts over here on the right-hand side where I can start typing, or I can click here. And move this around. So notice top left of my actual slide, I've got the thing, and so I can actually just click and drag it. So let's say I'm specifically talking about this. He needs. So let's say a subject matter expert goes through it, and they say, oh, he needs a hat. Right, so they've captured that feedback for me right there, and then they can submit this. And notice that there's actually, somebody can reply to it. And so this keeps a thread of the conversation. So having, definitely advisable, especially with Office 365, to put this in a place where, you've spent the time to, rapidly go through it and kind of put things together. The best thing to do is be able to get that feedback quickly. So put it in a place where you can kind of centralize that feedback so that people can, multiple stakeholders can actually see it and be able to see kind of what the conversation is. And then that way you also have a record of of kind of what's been discussed and what feedback needs to go, so what things need to change and go into make this an even more accurate storyboard, or take that feedback and moving on into the actual into the actual development process. And with that, Andrew, and eLearning Brothers, and everybody who's joined, that's actually what I have for you today. Are there definitely like to open up for questions if anybody has any additional questions or anything like that.
Sure, we've got a couple minutes and quite a few questions here.
Awesome.
I understand that you were showing how to do this quickly, and so you may have not put in a lot of detail into these, but can you change the icons so that they're different colors?
You can, you absolutely can. So that would be where, I talked before about, let me move to the slide here where I was talking about it. I talked about, moving these shapes and stuff. So you can actually do the same thing with an icon. It's actually the fill color for an icon. So you would go click on the icon. Let me just make sure I have the icon. Yep. So you notice you can actually do, I don't know if you can see it. Let me make it bigger here. You notice it's actually outlined in green, and it has a white color. So let me go to the graphic fill. So the graphic fill, let's change it to blue, and then change the outline to yellow. So probably not what I would go for, on an actual course or whatever. But yeah, just to show you that you can definitely change the graphic fill and the graphic outline, and of course even add effects to it if you want. But some of these things, like the color, definitely something you would want to, because maybe certain things in your organization certain buttons mean a certain thing, or certain icon colors mean a certain thing. So that could be a way for you as you're going through the development process to kind of, just a color will indicate to your developer what a button is supposed to do or whatever. And then that's where, again, kind of going into your pre-built template, kind of like what we've got on the screen here, that pre-built template, along with, just making some of those decisions in advance, like colors and stuff like that, it, really helps to streamline that process. The key behind the sort of muted colors, though, I purposely went with black and white, and that's to keep folks, I didn't want to go too much into theory, right? But I wanted to keep folks, and when I say folks, I mean the stakeholders, right? They're the folks that are reviewing this. I don't want them stuck on, well, I don't like that color, or, well, she shouldn't be wearing that, or, his attire really isn't business casual. It's, it's too stuffy for us. Didn't want folks focusing, you don't want your stakeholders focused on that kind of stuff. Great question, though.
Excellent. Where would you add your treatment notes? Just in the comments, or can you add them elsewhere?
So you could actually do a number of things. So the quickest, I think, way to do the treatment notes for your developer would be to use the notes section, or to use the comments. So again, on the review ribbon and then new comment, I think it would be best to go with one over the, one or the other, or use one, like the new comment, for example, use that for a particular type of production or development note, and then maybe some contextual or content would go in the actual notes. But either way, you could do them both ways. So the other way was to go to your view tab and then just turn on the notes view, and that's going to be over here kind of in the middle of the ribbon. And then at the bottom of the screen, that gives you your notes view. You can click, you get that, hover over the line and get that double arrow, click and drag up, and that will give you more space. And so you can actually, if you need this to be smaller, your canvas can be smaller by clicking. I just click on it and do the, I think there's another way, like the zoom, but I tend to do the click and then use my mouse wheel to scroll. And then that way I can kind of see what I'm looking at, and then, kind of put in my notes at the same time.
Excellent. There's also several people that are saying that they have Office 365, but they're not seeing the same ribbon options as you. We had another person come out and point out that if you go to File, Options, and then Customize Ribbon, you can select all commands, and this will make it so that your ribbon shows everything that is available. So some of you may be in Office 365 and not seeing everything. but if you select all commands right here, you'll be able to see everything that we've talked about today.
Good catch. Yeah, mine, and for some reason mine was defaulted this way. Um, so, but that's definitely a good catch. So again, all customize ribbon, all commands right here.
Another question has come up. What if we want to pull a slide from another PowerPoint? Is there an easy way to do that?
Yes. Um, Before I answer that question, something else occurred to me
Sure.
about the where can we put our notes. You could also add a shape to your pre-built template. And I'll just grab a quick shape and show you kind of what I mean, just off to the side here. And either, put it off on the side, or if you want to make sure that they see it, put it on screen. But either way, you can type your notes in that way. So grab a shape or a text box and be able to do it that way as well. So the quick way to reuse a PowerPoint slide that you've already got, that's actually the reuse slides feature that's found on your home ribbon. So go to home and then click on reuse slides. And again, what this is doing is it's gonna, let me close this out and show you that what it's doing is it's opening this panel here on the right-hand side called the reuse slides panel, and it's crawling through your OneDrive. It's looking through your, you can actually even see here, OneDrive, you can see the location of the file. So OneDrive, Secureworks Incorporated, document. So that's where this particular file is. And then it's also going through SharePoint. So let me see if I can find one here. Yeah, so sales new hire shared document. So that would be there. So and then what you do is you just
different presentations.
Exactly. It's all the different PowerPoints only that you have either in OneDrive, SharePoint, or on your local drive. And so you just click on the presentation, click on that presentation and scroll through, and it gives you that view to be able to see which slides you want. Let's say it's this guy right here that I want, and you notice it puts it over here. Wherever your cursor happened to be, and since I happen to be on that last slide, it puts it at the very last. No big deal though if you need it in a different place than where it winds up. You can always click and drag to move it into a different location.
All right, and then we only have time for one more question. Is there a way in the icon section to load your own icons? For example, if you need to use corporate approved icons, can you load your own icons into that tray?
That's a good question. I don't think you can actually you can't load them into this icons button, but you can always do the pictures instead, and then just have a location. Like notice here, this is actually where I had all of the items that I used for the pre-built template. So you could just load your images here in a folder, and then have those approved marketing approved ones. But I would actually go a step further with that, and maybe even put those on a slide. So maybe you have your icon deck or something like that, and you can have all of your approved icons out in the in the area here, or even on the slide, and and just use the reuse slides feature to pull those slides in that you need.
Excellent. I'm going to go ahead and take the screen back for a moment.
Okay.
Let's make sure I share the right one here. All right, so thank you again, Tim. This has been really, really useful. We have lots of other presentations that talk about storyboarding as well. Last week was ELBX, or last week and the 6 weeks prior was ELBX Online, and we had a couple sessions on storyboarding and planning out your design and your courses. So you can go and find those at eLearningbrothers.com as well. Upcoming here on the right of the screen on June 10th, we've got ELBX Live coming up. That's at the University of Utah in Salt Lake City. If you want to come and get a couple more tips from our custom team and from our developers, We'd love to see you there and chat about your projects. If you want to see more of what our custom team does, there on the left side, you can see that. You can reach out to us at 801-796-2767 or just send us an email at info@elearningbrothers.com. If you guys have more questions for Tim or would like to connect with Tim and pick his brain with other information that you may need, please reach out to him on LinkedIn. That's the best way to connect with Tim. Thanks again, Tim. This has been really useful. Thanks everybody for joining us. We hope that you've enjoyed what you've learned here today and can use it throughout your courses. Thanks everybody. We'll see you guys later.
Thanks everyone.